Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMS Provider Compliance Messages webinar. My name is Mary Moko. I am a member of the Provider Outreach and Education team. We call that the PO team at WPS, and I'll be your presenter today. I am joined by my friend and colleague, Bailey Lawson, who will be helping with technical issues and questions that you place into the chat. Before we start, though, remember to review disclaimers that I have placed at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. That will be in your presentation materials. It is the notes section of the slide deck that provide details that you should be aware of. Today, my goal is to help you learn about CMS provider compliance messages and how to use them to avoid common billing errors. I do want to encourage you to add questions into the comments in the chat feature as we move along. I will answer them after my prepared remarks in just a little bit. So here then is our objective for today. I just talked about that a little bit. I am going to explain the purpose of those CMS provider compliance messages, demonstrate how you can find those messages, and show you how to filter messages by topic or title. That should look really familiar because that is the information that appeared in the webinar description when you registered for today's program. So I'm going to begin now with the purpose for CMS provider compliance messages. CMS publishes a lot of helpful information on their website. The provider compliance messages that they publish reveal resources that will help providers quickly learn about compliance issues and common billing errors that result in improperly paid claims. Now, many of the messages that are published as a compliance message are actually the result of reviews that were performed by the Office of Inspector General, we call them OIG, or the Comprehensive Error Rate Testing, or CERT contractor. Now, as of December 11th, just a few days ago, there were actually 34 messages that were posted. Coming up next, I am going to show you how you can find and filter those CMS provider compliance messages. Here's a slide that includes an embedded link to the CMS Provider Compliance Messages webpage. And remember this information, these embedded links are included in the electronic version of the handout that we have available for download on our live events page. I'm going to click on the link to open it and demonstrate what the page looks like today. Thanks for your patience. Sometimes it takes just a little bit of time for everything to catch up. That's what I'm seeing here on my monitors in front of me right now. So this slide then shows the CMS Provider Compliance webpage. You can choose how many entries that you want to view per page by choosing from the options in this drop-down menu under the word Show Entries. You can view 10 per page, 25 per page. Click on that for just a moment, or even more. You can also move through the compliance messages, of course, here at the bottom of the page by choosing to move from page 1 to 2 or to the end of the list or back all the way to the beginning of the list. Now, I mentioned to you that as of December 11th, there were 34 messages posted. So obviously, if you ask it to show 50 messages per page, you're going to see all of them at once. All right, we are going to move past the filter option right now. I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit, but I do want to scroll down the page a little bit so that you can see what this provider compliance web page looks like. As you can see, you can arrange by title simply by clicking on the arrows that you see here next to the word title. So by doing so, you can choose to view the titles of the provider compliance messages in alpha order, A through Z, okay, or you can reverse that order. I tend to like to look at things A through Z, so I'm going to leave it that way for now. You can also choose to view the provider compliance messages by date by going over to the second column here on that list and choosing to move the dates from oldest to newest, or turn it around and choose newest to oldest. Again, though, I kind of like looking at these in alpha order by title. It is really personal preference and how you like to view things, but it's easily sortable, so you can use that feature. I do want to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, bear with me here. Back to the PowerPoint. Here we are. Now I just demonstrated once again how to sort by title A through Z, or reverse it, or sort by date. I do want to go back and revisit that filter at this time. This helps you move along, move quickly in order to see if there is a provider compliance message that exists for something that you might be looking for. You can choose to set a filter to view only those items that match the word or the date that you're filtering for, but it is important to note that when you're using the filter on the web page, that it's going to bring matches only for words or dates that appear in the title and the date column when you're using that. So to filter messages, then you enter the topic or the title in the filter on box located on the top right, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Go back to the web page for just a moment. Bring that back over. I'll let you take a look at that here. So again, you can choose to filter on, you can choose to add a word to the filter on feature. I am going to choose the word remote. And as you can see, while typing the word remote, this filter feature, or filter on feature, if you will, brings back results based on the information that I entered there in that box, that being the word remote, and it brought back a match to a title of a provider compliance message, specifically one with the word remote in it. It is remote patient monitoring. Use and bill correctly. If I want to see only those messages that were published maybe this year, I can filter on a date by choosing to enter a date in the filter on feature. By doing so, you can see that I have narrowed down the number of entry in the provider compliance messages to show 1 of 6 entries. So there are actually 6 provider compliance messages with a 2025 date. Maybe you might recall looking for something back in 24. You want to look at 2024 provider compliance messages. You can filter on those dates as well. Just kind of, narrows down all of those titles that you're looking at. And of course, you can also narrow down by topic. In this case, I used the word remote. I'm going to move that away for just a moment and go back to the PowerPoint here. So let's take a look at some of the message content itself, beginning with that entry that I searched for. I searched for the remote, or I put a filter on for the word remote. Let's take a look at that message content for remote patient monitoring. Use and bill completely. When looking at that, we can learn that it was an Office of Inspector General review that actually resulted in the reporting of this issue. CMS has also included a link to the OIG report so that you can view the details of what OIG found in their review. You can take a look at their findings, and you can actually view the actions that OIG recommended to CMS. Equally important is that you can see the CMS response to those recommendations. So typically, this is a good indication of what lies ahead for Medicare administrative contractors, or MACs, like WPS, and Medicare providers. In some cases, corrective actions may already be in the works. So I am going to go back to the page once again so that you can get familiar with the provider compliance web page, messages page. Just pulling it up on my other monitor. Bear with me. It's coming. Sometimes the internet moves a little slower than we like when we do these live demonstrations. Thanks for hanging in there. So back to the provider compliance messages, and right now what I was talking about is that message for remote patient monitoring. To open it, just simply click on it, and you can actually view then the OIG report, as I mentioned, by choosing to hover over and click on the word report. This then again provides the details of that report. I'm just going to pop through a couple of them here, make it a little bit bigger so that you can see this. The report highlights, why did OIG do this review? What did they find? What did they recommend? And what I mentioned is very, very important, of course, is that CMS response to those recommendations. Because this really gives us kind of an idea of where CMS may go with their instructions to their contractors, the MACs. Typically, you're going to find those OIG responses, or excuse me, the CMS responses near the end of the report. I'm just scrolling through here, very bottom. Bear with me. All right, back up. Here it is. This is what I like to point out to folks. Those very, very important, those responses to the OIG recommendations. And when I'm talking about responses, I'm talking about the responses from CMS. Okay, so this tells you that they appreciated the opportunity to review those comments by the OIG. And then within the letter itself, you'll have each of the OIG recommendations and CMS's response. Now, CMS concurs with this. Sometimes CMS does not concur with the findings of OIG, and you'll be able to see that here in their response as well. A lot of times CMS will put into their information or into this response information about their strategies to keep errors from occurring. In this case here, they're saying, as part of our strategy, we've developed ways to assist with identifying healthcare providers billing for remote patient monitoring services, that they're going to take the OIG findings and recommendations into consideration when determining any appropriate next steps. Okay. So very important information in terms of kind of keeping your eye on what's going on at CMS, what they're looking at, those referrals that are made, those recommendations made to that agency, and then how it comes trickling down to the MACs, the Medicare Administrative Contractors, and ultimately to the providers. Head back to the compliance message content. I did mention to you that most often you're going to find links to the report findings themselves, and equally important is links to resources, those resources that you're going to be able to use then to correctly bill for the services that are identified in that particular compliance message content. Let's take a look at another compliance message, or the content of one. And I apologize, scrolled too fast there. This one is titled Comprehensive Outpatient Rehabilitation Facility Services Prevent Claim Denials. Let's go ahead and open that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time here. So a link is going to take you to the Medicare fee-for-service supplemental improper payment data that's published. This information is about the comprehensive outpatient rehab facility services. You can see or find a link to the actual findings for those CORF services, and CORF again is just an acronym for Comprehensive Outpatient Rehabilitation Facility. You can find links to multiple resources to help correctly bill for these. The last two bullets refer to the way, the last two bullets on the PowerPoint, that is, refer to the way that CMS will use the CERT findings. CMS is publishing education always to educate providers on those cert findings. So as we move through the message itself, this time it talks about the CERT report that has the findings, those improper payments for CORF services. The those services that we reviewed, it says here the improper payment rate for those services was 47.4%, and insufficient documentation accounted for 89.7% of those improper payments. And then there is a link to that CERT report itself. So I'm opening that up. It takes you right to the page that talks about root causes for home health here. But in order to find the information on the CORF arrows, you could simply scroll through or search for them. But it does take you to the specific report that has those findings. To the page here, got a lot of windows open. Right here. Bear with me, I'm getting there. Right, and of course it has links to those resources to learn how to bill correctly for these services. So a lot of different topics here. It is sortable, of course, by title, and remember that you can filter on for a specific topic. In this case, one of the things you could have considered would be rehabilitation. Would have taken you and included this report or this actual message, the CMS provider compliance message. Maybe in the future you want to consider narrowing down and using the words claim denials in the filter on feature, and then of course it would bring back a result such as this one. Let's take a look at one more example of a compliance message or the content. This is bill correctly for inhalant drugs. If you open this, you will be able to see who identified this compliance issue. I can see by the next bullet here, it was the Office of Inspector General. It will take you via an embedded link to the actual findings for their review, the report. And remember, that would include those important recommendations to CMS and then the CMS response. Also provides in this particular compliance message links to Medicare provider compliance tips, and I'll be showing those that appear on the CMS website in an upcoming webinar on December 23rd. Registration for that is available, but let's take a look at this particular compliance message, opening it up right now. And here it is. This is the provider compliance message for bill correctly for inhalant drugs. You can see the date there. This one's a little old, back 2020. April 23rd was the published date. There's a link to the report by the Office of Inspector General about those improperly paid claims submitted by suppliers for inhalation drugs. Let's take a look at that report, opening it up now. So $92.5 million estimated improperly paid for inhalation drugs. If you scroll down within an OIG report, you'll get to a brief report. Really kind of summarizes it very nicely. You know, what OIG found, what they recommend, what CMS comments, a little bit about how OIG did the review. And then this particular section of the OIG report is the table of contents. And this is just a really nice way to, you know, review the content of that report and then move to the section of the report that you want to actually read and look at if you're looking for something specific and you're not wanting to go through the entire report. So just some good information. I'm going to scroll down again. Talking about inhalant drugs here, conclusions, and then here, this time it's not in a letter, but it's within this report. After the findings, you'll see a listing Of the recommendations of OIG, we recommend that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Service instruct the durable medical equipment Medicare administrative contractors to A, B, C, and D. We also recommend this, A, B, C, and D. Sometimes they actually recommend within these reports that we, the MACs, in this case, we're talking about the durable medical equipment MAC right now, because this particular report or these findings are specific to durable medical equipment. But sometimes, and they're doing so here, we recommend that CMS tell the MACs to go back and get that money, recover those overpayments. Okay. So sometimes this just kind of would initiate a lot of overpayment requests that the MAC would need to make, and so on and so forth. So sometimes they'll tell us, go back and get the monies you overpaid. And other times where we may have underpaid claims, OID could go to CMS that we make adjustments to claims and send those additional payments out to providers. So here then are the CMS comments based on the findings. So I want to point those out too. A bit more information about the review itself, related Office of Inspector General reports, a lot of great information in these reports for those folks in your compliance areas to consider. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. I want to link to those Medicare provider compliance tips that are included in the compliance message here. It's just taking a little bit of time again. Thanks for your patience. Speeding it up a little bit. Here then are some provider compliance tips that are relative to the information we just talked about, specific to inhalant drugs and a lot of durable medical equipment here. So provider compliance tips as well as messages. Today we're focusing though on those provider compliance messages, those issues and ways you can avoid those common billing errors that have been identified. And again, most of these are being published by CMS as a result of an issue identified by the Office of Inspector General or the CERT contractor. So two medical review types of medical review that are going on. One is a CMS medical review contractor, and then of course the other one is the Office of Inspector General, the OIG. That's really not a medical review contractor, but they are charged with or tasked with making certain that the HHS or Health and Human Services agencies are following their directions and making payment only for those Medicare claims that should be paid or properly paid. All right, back to the PowerPoint. Before I open for questions, I just have one announcement, and this concerns the annual Medicare participation announcement. Specifically, as you're planning for next year, CMS wants us to help remind providers of the advantages of participating in Medicare. So we have an annual Medicare participation announcement that is linked on this slide. You can go to that for more information about those advantages of participating in Medicare. By the end of this year, all physicians, practitioners, and suppliers, regardless of their participation status, have to decide whether to participate with that in calendar year 2026. You don't need to do anything if you're already participating in Medicare. If you're participating provider is what that means. You have signed that agreement with Medicare to accept assignment on all Medicare claims. If you want to continue your participation and you're already participating, there's no action needed. Or if you're not currently participating and you don't want to participate, there is no action needed. So we just want to encourage our provider community to take a look at that, because that deadline, December 31st, is coming up really quickly. All right, at this point in time, I do want to open for any questions that you might have about compliance messages. This is a 30-minute webinar today just to introduce you to those great compliance resources, let you know about how you can manipulate the information or search within the information, filter on information, view it by date, by title, and so on and so forth. Bailey, have we received any questions that you have not answered?
No, Mary, there have not been any questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. If there's time, I'll pop back, but I'll let you know in just a little bit. If you think of a question in the next 7 days relative to what I've talked about today, you'll still have time to send that to us. First, I want to talk just a little bit about a brief survey that we will ask you to complete following this event. You know, we're really interested in your opinions about your customer experience with WPS, and it's not just WPS that wants to know, it is CMS that wants to know. So we do have a survey available. Bailey is placing the survey link in the chat. You can actually cut and paste that into a browser and start that survey right now while I'm closing with these closing remarks. This survey rather, is so very important to us. We want to know your likes, your dislikes, what we could do better, topics we could consider for future events. It's so important to us that we provide you with an opportunity to complete that survey, if you've not already done so, by use of a redirect. Following the close of this webinar. When you close out of our webinar today, you will see something that looks like what you're seeing on the right side of the screen. Yellow triangle at the top, blue button at the bottom. This is just one other opportunity for you to use the survey. We make changes at WPS based on your survey feedback or those suggestions. Many of you commented after attending our last 2 Medicare Education Expos that you really liked that type of event. It's one-day event with, you know, several different sessions that are all kind of related to each other on the same day or related to the same topic. We will be hosting another Medicare Education Expo on Tuesday, January 27th, and registration for that event is available now, so you might want to take a look at that if you're interested in learning about the WPS departments, why we do what we do, you know, and some of those departments have some tips to make things easier for you, and we're going to share that on behalf of those departments during that event on the 27th. Bailey, I'm going to take it back to you just one more time to see if any questions have come in related to what we're talking about today.
Nope, there are no questions in the chat still.
All right, well then it is my pleasure to thank all of you for attending today. We know that you're also very, very busy. Thanks for taking time to listen and learn about WPS and CMS education, those Medicare issues, to help you submit claims that are properly paid. We want to make certain we are paying you correctly the first time, every single time. So again, thank you for attending. We look forward to those survey comments, and we hope to see you again at a future WPS event. Thanks everyone. That's all for today. You may disconnect.